Hi, I'm Charlotte Merrill, and this is our So Let's Be Friends podcast. This is a place where everyone belongs, and every story matters. Together, we celebrate our differences, bring awareness to disabilities, and build a more inclusive and supportive world. One conversation at a time, let's open our hearts and listen with kindness.
I like when people ask me about my crutches because they can get to know me, and I like having friends, so let's be friends.
This life is beautiful, and you are wonderful.
Hi, friends, and welcome back to So Let's Be Friends. A podcast is about inclusion, understanding, and learning from one another. Today's episode is part 2 of our conversation recently shared on Health with Sveta with Dr. Sveta Silverman. In this continuation, my mom and dad and Dr. Sveta go deeper into what everyday life looks like while raising children with physical and mental challenges. They talk about the day-to-day realities, routines, the hard moments, the wins, the small wins, and some neuroplasticity shows up in real life, not just in science. We wanted to share this part too, because growth doesn't stop one conversation, and neither does hope. Thank you for being here and listening with your heart.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sveta Silverman, and today we're continuing a very meaningful conversation, and the conversation that can help a lot of people to consider their family life and how to make it better. We didn't actually have enough time to explore everything we wanted to talk about, especially the day-to-day realities and how do they conduct the development, the growth of their children. In this episode, we will be diving deeper into how Anna and Loren and the kids are actually coping with real and in real life. What do they do? What is hard? What are the lifestyle changes and choices they had to make? And what the additional things they had to implement to work on the neuroplasticity of their kids? These kids, they have anatomical malformation of cerebellum. And as a doctor, anatomical malformations of cerebellum is going to impose or imply on their movements, on their balance, on their coordination, and of course, it's going to be aligned with some cognitive stuff. So all these kids, they are never stable. They're always climbing up, little steps at a time, little by little, but they are getting better. Not only are they getting better, these kids are actually, now they're growing up. Some of them are teenagers and some of them are basically young adults. And the interesting thing is how these parents integrate and accommodate them into the society. All these kids, they are absolute contributors to the society. And what is engraved, again, what is important in that lifestyle that Anna and Loren do is their kindness, is their love to people. and Merrill share what they do, and kids, their sort of desire, it's their desire to get better and better and better. I did not overhype anything. It's all true. Your kids are always in positive evolution. Am I right?
They are, and
do you see?
absolutely.
So tell me.
And even a time when you said they keep going up forward, higher and higher, I have to a lot of times convince teachers and principals and therapists and people around us that even if it feels like they're not making any movement, according to the rest of the world, they see them plateauing for a long time. And I just beg them and plead just to keep teaching them during that plateau, because I feel like it's been a huge pattern, and I've seen it with other kids as a teacher as well and as a coach. But they plateau, and then all of a sudden, everything that's just been pouring into their brain during that time, they just all of a sudden take a little bit of a takeoff, is what I like to call it. And then they plateau. But during that plateau, it's exactly what you said. They're just growing so many tiny centimeters or whatever you want to call it, that it's hard for the human eye, I feel like, to see it. And then they take another growth. And so we just never quit pouring into our children and pleading with others to keep teaching, even if it feels frustrating, like nothing's happening. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. It's incredible. And that's also to the point of never give up, never lose hope, and never take anything per se that you were, as you said, some of the physicians or some medical establishment, they told you, no, that's it. These are the boundaries. And you never accepted these boundaries, and your kids never accept these boundaries.
Well, part of the reason we haven't accepted them is because we've had the encouragement of Dr. Sveta Silverman here, and I have to give her credit back, because it's been huge for us to have her support. Well, because you're a doctor, and we've had a lot of doctors against us, so to have your support as a doctor, and then she became a friend and has guided us in all these extra puzzle pieces that we were missing. And so to have that encouragement, when before it was just my mom gut, but to have science behind it and have the encouragement of a doctor and a friend behind it, that everything we did for years wasn't crazy and isn't crazy still.
Well, thank you. That's a little bit too much. That's a little bit too kind for you, because I'm not going to take no credits. However, I'm going to give credits to kids, because the interesting thing about your kids, how real they are. Because they actually know that they have some disabilities. They accept it, but they never sit on these disabilities. That's a whole idea, that they're always climbing up. It's amazing, their strength, their sort of emotional strength, their heart strength, and their, I would say, godly strength. Because when they see kids with even more disabilities, with a kind of more severe disabilities, they go and help. And they go help and they guide. They almost mentor these kids. It's incredible to watch.
Thank you. And it's because they've been there too, so they have an understanding of the severe disabilities.
Absolutely. We will get to the part of the supplementation and activation. But I want to touch upon, what did you do with, in a sense, your lifestyle? What did you do with your food choices? Because your children are involved into every part of that daily routine.
Daily routine is really important, and I have the lanyards hanging right over there that I should bring over here. But for example, in the lanyards, my kids know what's expected every day, just kind of like a chore chart with, others that we've done growing up. But my kids couldn't physically get to their chore chart because it was on the wall. So their checkoff list, all the things they need to do, but their checkoff list had to be so detailed. So we put it on a lanyard around their neck, brush your teeth, which we had to help them brush their teeth, right? It had to get up was one of them, so they would get up in the morning, and they still do. They put a lanyard around their neck with all the little details or chore chart on their neck. And it's as simple as get dressed. And it's been neat over the years to see them put that on and needing help with every one of those. But now the 3x5 card goes in, it's a little bit harder because now they know how to get dressed by themselves and they know how to brush their teeth by themselves as adults. My 14-year-old still needs help brushing his teeth, and that's okay. But to me, that's one of the first steps, like all of us, even as adults, and we have a hard time getting through our checkoff list. So having that right there ready for them, that's part of the beginning of their day. And then it changes every day. We add another one in. So having that checkoff list, I think, is huge. But on there, we also have practice a talent, whatever that talent looks like, whether it's play the piano. And I feel like I'm jumping to so many things, but the piano, and I talked to Harrison's music teacher last night. Music has gone away in schools, and she was asking if I could help talk to some, principals or the higher ups just to show what music's done for my kids. Because Harrison performed in a choir concert last night. He struggles with his talking. He has a stutter and a block, but when he sings, it flows and it connects. And what that music does, we have our kids very involved with music, with the schools, with piano lessons. Even if they don't become masters at it, that's okay, because that music is connecting their brain. It's helping them memorize. It's helping them do math. It's helping that brain synapse. And it was just such an interesting conversation to have with his choir teacher last night on that. So we implement so many things with, music.
Playing instruments, again, that's your balance. These are fine manual skills. All this, whether rough manual skills or fine manual skills, it's all connected to the brain. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, music on its own. It's a brain developmental. We know that. We know how music is so important. We know for longevity. We know for the happiness and the calmness. Mm-hmm. People that sing, people that play instrument, it doesn't matter whether you are Itzhak Perlman or not. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Now, the thing is, Loren, I don't know how musical Loren is. Let's don't go far. However, I also know what Loren does with the kids in terms of sports. In terms of sports, in terms of outdoors activities.
We found that our kids are able to pretty much do everything other kids can. It just takes them longer to learn it and to do it. They do it at a slower pace. And Anna's been great at figuring this out and having the persistence to keep on them to do something over and over, whether it be writing or reading, and just have them repeat and repeat and repeat until they get the repetition where they get it down. And we've been amazed at the things that they've been able to do and accomplish.
Now, Loren, what I want to ask you about your quality outing time with your kids. When you go fishing, when you go hunting.
We live in Arizona, so it's not like other places where there's just water running everywhere. So one of the places that we like to go is very remote. It takes a 4-wheel drive to get in there, and it's about a 3-hour drive. And it's a hike straight down, probably averaging at a, 30 to 40 degree angle down into this canyon. Very steep. Rugged hike to get down to this river where it's really good fishing. And I've been taking Harrison in there he's been in there several times, several years worth, and he's able to do the fishing by himself. I do a lot of the bait for him, working with those sharp hooks and the fine motor skills for that one. Still working on them doing that by themselves. But Harrison, a couple years ago, he was 11, and we were there with some good family friends. And Harrison's always, and again, he's a little bit behind his natural, chronological age. So he gets along really well with kids that are, 4 or 5 years younger. And we were there with these family friends, and these three young boys were there. Harrison and these other 2 boys were there with me. And we were right in the trailhead, and I said, okay, why don't you guys get a head start and start up the trail while I pack all the fishing gear up into my backpack to make it easier to hike. Just not really thinking that they'd get very far, but just, letting them kind of try that on their own. Anyway, so it took me a few minutes to, break down the fishing poles and put everything together and pack it all in my backpack. And so then I started up the trail, and I got, 100 yards, 200 yards up the trail, a quarter mile up the trail, and there was no sign of these boys. And I started panicking a little bit, thinking maybe they took a wrong turn, they got off the trail, and I'm going to be searching for them, in this remote wilderness. What the heck did I do? Did I make a mistake doing that? About half a mile up the trail, I finally caught up to the boys, much to my much to my relief that they were there. But Harrison was hiking right alongside these other boys, and he was just doing it all by himself.
And something to remember there that's really important is Harrison has cerebral palsy. So in the past, he's always had to carry him. And it's been exciting when he was able to hold his hand and hike with him. So to come from carrying him and holding his hand and not letting him go, to have him go on his own. And he has balance issues and he falls with his cerebral palsy. So for him to get to go take off and do this, that's the miracle. That's what's exciting. He didn't expect them to get far ahead or away from him because Harrison never has been able to do that. So that's where all the excitement is in this story. My heart is just leaping for joy listening.
And he ended up completing the entire hike all by himself without me carrying him, without me holding his hand, without me having to help him at all. He did the whole hike and I don't think he could have done it without those other two boys right there next to him who don't have any special needs and are perfectly capable of making that hike. But it was, one of those moments where he astonished me in what he was able to do because he put his mind to it, and because he is around other kids without special needs, that he was just able to follow them, and he was so proud of himself. And he didn't even, I think I even tried to offer him help at one point, and he said, "No, Dad, I want to do this all by myself." And he did. He hiked all the way up to the truck.
We have people all the time ask us, why do you keep your kids so active? The weekends where they just kind of sit around and watch TV or relax, which never happens, but it's happened because I've tested it. On Mondays, when they get back to school, they're lethargic and weak. On the weekends when they don't do a whole lot. Like going to the gym. If anybody goes to the gym or works out, their body stays tight and stays fit and stays more active and in motion and energetic. And I just have to remember those with special needs and disabilities, theirs is times that, right? So the moment they take too much of a step back and relax and don't just stay active by moving, if they don't do those things after just a day or two of them not being active, they go back to being very lethargic. One of the things we've done is we put a big grass field at our house, and we have the kids run or walk that with us, and that keeps them active. And if they fall on grass and not on something hard. But just keeping that, so like yesterday, they all came home and knew they had to run around the grass a few times, and they actually love it. They don't hate it. And it's a lot of fun for them. So the activity is huge to build up to get to do that hike with Dad.
Let's take a quick break to talk about some tangible steps you can take right now towards true health and happiness. My life's purpose is to empower you to seize control of your life, especially when it comes to wellness. But every person's needs are unique, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. That's why we're launching a brand new initiative. Now, you can book one-on-one call with me, Dr. Sveta Silverman. Please do. Together, we'll talk about your history, your health history, how you feel, how can you improve on your health, the goals. I'll use that information to help you to plan a custom approach full of recommendation that I learned not only from my medical career, but from my personal journey. Let's unlock the secrets of happier, healthier you. Visit healthwithsveta.com/contact to book your free 30 minutes conversation and call with me. Now back to the episode. This is incredible because I'm just going to summarize a couple things. What is so important for our, in a sense, for neuroplasticity? So family values, so the family commitment to the whole thing, to all that we need to do to some disabilities and working on them. Then she just told you, Anna just told us about the exercise, the importance of exercise. And then what Anna said, that the continuity of the process. It's a consistency and continuity of, yes. So the kids have a continuity and consistency of routine. So it's a pattern, it's working, and every time with the pattern, she's adding a little bit more. a little bit more, a little bit more. Same thing with an exercise. They're adding a little bit more, and then the adjustment. But again, family, and see that loving family, they're adjusting. So for kids to exercise safe, they put the grass. And again, so family, exercise, consistency, continuity. Awesome. That's incredible. And then there's one very important thing that I need to learn because I love TV. And Anna said you watch TV less, but you do some other activities more, and the kids are behaving much better. It also applies probably to their computers and stuff. So the more they do, the more physicality, whatever. So that works. So now let's get to the nitty gritty of, in order for us to exercise and function, we need to eat. So how did you teach your kids to start eating better food and making better choices? And are they contributing to these choices and growing the food and picking the food and cooking the food, these kind of things? Because I know they are.
Yes, and I appreciate that. And it was funny because I had a friend just come pick Charlotte up just now to take her Christmas shopping. And one of the things on the Christmas list was, a bunch of chocolate. And I just reminded her, I said, remember, if you get a bunch of chocolate and candy for the kids, they're really not going to eat it. And it's not even because I've set the rule anymore. It's because their body's not craving it and wanting it, and it'll just sit on the counter until it gets thrown away. And so we kind of scratched some of the candy and junk food off the list, the Christmas wish list. And I think, like you said, you kind of nailed it, is just teaching it and living it every day. We do plant a garden together. We pick out the kale out of the garden, tomatoes, apples off the tree. It's taken lots of years. It didn't just happen.
Do they eat kale?
They love kale, actually. We put it into our soups and our smoothies. We make kale chips. And so I think, and the thing is I don't have them out there for hours working with me because physically they would lose balance all the time. It gets dangerous because just working through a garden. But so I don't have them do hours with me. That's where I, as a mother, get to stay sane as well and get my time out in the garden by myself. And I think that's really important for parents to understand they need their own time. And in being in nature for me and working in my garden is a space that I love. But I think it's so important, and I invite them to go out there with me and to work with me for short windows, not long windows, because it's hard for kids to concentrate for that long doing, something they want. Harrison just wants to go run through the leaves rather than pick vegetables.
It's so amazing, Anna, what you just said, because you actually allow kids not only to participate in the food growing, food picking, food preparing activities, but you're actually making it fun for them. So now it's not becoming a chore because you don't employ them per se for, no, you have to do it for an hour and blah, blah, blah. You have to help mom till she's done weeding the field or the yard. No, you basically, them. Again, that adjustment is so critically important because they love what they're doing. They love with whom they're doing. And they see that connection that mom is not just pushing us. So it's not only the food, the sort of the category of the food. Okay, fine, kale. Okay, fine, carrots. But it's also the activity to grow these carrots. To pick these carrots and stuff. And thank you, Anna Merrill, for actually growing the sustainable garden.
A couple of things I wanted to point out to what you're saying is you've mentioned already it takes a village to raise kids, because I don't want to claim all the, we have a physical therapist that comes in once a week and helps me to know what to do, how to have them run, how to do these things, how to do the stretches and work their hamstrings before. So we have the support. So that's one thing I want to make sure that listeners and people understand is they don't have to have all this knowledge by themselves. They need to reach out and ask for help. So I asked the physical therapist, give me some ideas, what can I do? And then with the gardening thing, after 20 years of gardening, my soil was depleted. So I reached out to a gardener and asked him for help. And so I just want to make sure people know they can ask for help, because I didn't just know all this stuff on my own. It's because I asked people, and I'm not afraid to ask questions.
I need to thank Loren for his persistence. Putting you on NRF2 activator per tandem. Because without Loren and his persistence of putting... It's true. On NRF2 per tandem, which is basically remind the listeners and maybe some first-time listeners, what is NRF2 per tandem? NRF2 per tandem is It's a combination of 5 herbs. I'll give you just a couple examples of the herbs. Ashwagandha, curcumin, which is a turmeric extract, bacopa, milk thistle, and green tea extract, EGCG. And what does it do? It turned on the master regulator, truly master regulator of cellular health, which is called NRF2. And that activation of NRF2 is going to clean cellular garbage. And without cleaning cellular garbage, we are not going to live in health. So please tell me now, what are you doing for kids' supplementation and kids' activation to sustain them? And again, to implement that into the whole regimen of their lifestyle.
Just eating a lot cleaner, a lot healthier is a huge thing. My kids, they do like a cinnamon roll here or there, but that's during the holidays. So, and that's not even necessarily because I forced them into that. They notice a difference in their own body. Harrison notices a big difference when he puts a bunch of sugar and junk food or, things into his body that he doesn't feel as good the next day. So he's recognized that on his own. And I really worked hard to teach my kids, give them the options, and then kind of let them govern themselves in that area. Because I've learned as a teacher, as a mom, as a coach, when you force kids into things or anybody into things without the information and knowledge and the wisdom behind it, they fight back on it a little bit more, right? So like my kids know that we just buy plain yogurt, but in that yogurt we add fruits. And then we even add our favorite drink, which is Axio. It's a powder we add into it to give it that sweetness. And it's a brain food as well.
What's Axio? What does it do?
I call it brain food. It's NRF2 for the brain. It's giving the brain nutrients. And my kids, if you ask them, it helps them to concentrate better. That's a hard word that was hard for them to say for a long time, but they notice a huge, huge difference in their concentration, their balance. They call it mom's happy drink. Because it makes, when I'm a little bit grouchy or down, because we all do, we all get there. My kids will say, Mom, do you want your happy drink? So getting the right nutrients to our brain helps with all of it, the concentration, the brain fog, the happiness. And so that's a huge one in our...
How do they do without Axio?
My kids actually, they get back to lethargic. And I know that sounds funny, but if you remember, my kids have severe cerebral palsy. They're missing part of their brain. Their white and gray brain matter is deformed. So if we lack on the nutrients for my kids, they go back to going back into the wheelchairs that are in our garage that we don't have to use hardly ever anymore. But it's 1:00 in the afternoon. If my kids run out of Axio, the teacher's calling me and asking us if we can send more Axio in because they notice a drastic difference in how my kids perform and how they do with their writing and with their test taking. And Caroline's in the inclusive classroom for her school, and she's been taking her finals, and she got 70% by herself on one of her government tests. And to come home and see your daughter who's been self-contained and in special needs, and we've been really trying to incorporate her into the classroom and inclusion. It's not easy. She has to have an aide here or there, or quite often. But for her to get a 70% by herself.
She actually got 80%. I just barely put the score in for her final, just this moment. All by herself. Gosh. I didn't help her one single bit.
That's huge.
Oh. That's amazing.
That's
incredible.
And that's what
that's super huge.
That's what getting.
So that's on top. That's on top of the NRF2 per tandem.
And the Axio. So
my kids,
what else do they take?
So they take the NRF2 Pro Tandem, which my husband started me on in 2015. Like Sveta talked about, my body wasn't working right. I was having intestine problems, all the problems that a mom has when she takes care of her kids and gives herself to her kids and forgets to take care of herself, right? I was lifting kids that were with cerebral palsy that were too big for me to be lifting like little babies, and I wasn't taking care of my body, and I wasn't eating healthy, and my body broke. And my husband ordered this NRF2 Pro Tandem from watching an ABC News report, which I fought tooth and nail because I didn't want to put the money into myself. I wanted to put it into my children. And my husband said, happy wife, happy life. And he started lovingly making me take it. And from there is when I learned by talking to other doctors, not just Dr. Sveta, because I didn't know her at the time, but talking to other doctors, their ear, nose, and throat doctor, doctors at Phoenix Children's, and they actually recognized what NRF2 was. And they said that they were explaining to me to go into PubMed and do my research and to understand that NRF2 gets rid of oxidative stress, and disease comes from oxidative stress. And my kids were born with high oxidative stress, inflammation in their body, because they were aging quickly because of their neurodegenerative disease that caused cerebral palsy and all these problems. So after me being on this product for a whole year, I had a doctor lovingly put me in my place and ask me why my kids were not on it. And that's when the guilt set in, and I did my research and understood my kids needed to be on it more than I. And so I was grateful that I started getting myself healthy that year so I could have the energy to take care of my children. But I immediately got them on the NRF2 Protandim. And I was even able, because they were so little, Harrison was just a baby, a kid, and they were all, Caroline first grade, I was able to start them on a half or Protandim.
So basically, since 2016, the kids are on Protandim.
Activating
Activating every day. Mm-hmm. Okay, on Axio, anything you do with their microgut support, because that is extremely important.
Well, I want to say the next thing we did is we went on to support their mitochondria. That's what I thought you were going to say. Their mitochondria, the NRF1.
Absolutely. You go, girl. Absolutely. Why did you do that? And why did you do the mitochondrial support for your kids, I wonder?
Well, my kids have mitochondria dysfunction, and we didn't understand how important mitochondria was. I mean, you learn about it in 8th grade, you learn about it in biology, but the mitochondria is the engine to the cell. It's the whole, you can have the cell beautiful and healthy, but if you don't have that engine in it, it can't go anywhere. And so when we started on the NRF1, because there's different pathways to the cell I'm learning and to the mitochondria, and we started them on that pathway, and there's so much to their brain for the mitochondria. Their brain was tired. Our neurologist told me they had mitochondria dysfunction, and there was nothing for it. There's not a drug for it that we could find. Maybe there's something now. I still haven't found it. There's not a surgery you can do for it. It is getting the right foods into your body, learning which foods support mitochondria, but also getting the activation to build more mitochondria. And so we immediately got that in. And then we started to learn about gut health as we were shifting our gluten in our home and getting, less dairy, but also adding the right dairies and adding the tons more fruits and vegetables. My kids know, you ask them how many fruits and vegetables to have a day, and they say, give me 5, and we give each other 5. They have to eat at least 5 a day. But we also add
fruits and vegetables a day. Full stop. The kids know it.
Yep, they know it, and we talk about it. Harrison gets home from school and tells me I had carrots for lunch, and it's just a normal conversation of just eating healthy. But yeah, getting the probiotics, and I don't know, this is your area of expertise, but my kids know that they have to poop at least after each meal, and having that knowledge, because in my 20s and 30s, when my intestines, and I had to have a surgery on my intestines, I didn't know that. I thought Fruit Loops was healthy because it said made with real fruit on the box. And so to have my kids grow up in a world knowing they need to eat fruits and vegetables that are healthy to help their intestines to work and go to the bathroom. I mean, that's huge for anybody. All of us need to be doing that.
That's incredible. I kind of need to interrupt you because I'm jumping out of my chair. So those kids with these disabilities and stuff, they know, that they need to eat at least 5 fruits and vegetables a day. They know that they basically, sorry for the language, need to poop basically after each meal. So if you go now outside and go to the regular school and talk to the absolutely average normal kids or the average adults, how many of them will come up with this? How many? I kid you not. It will be the vast minority that are actually aware of this. So the importance of what you're doing and how much of that kindness you're spreading, because you're not a doctor. So what you do, you, Loren, and your kids as lame people, and the lame people and the kids with disabilities, and you go into the outside world and you spread this word of kindness and knowledge and this word of health, you're changing the world. You literally do. You're changing lives. You're bringing goodness into this world. There's nothing better than that. You kids are changing the world. You're changing people to get better. Because when we feel better, we're actually kinder to the other people. It was kind of a dream of mine to have you on podcast because, again, you need to bring You need to bring alive people. You need to bring people with real stories. And you need to bring real people. It doesn't matter whether I bring the best doctor in the world and we will start talking gibberish medical language. That doesn't resonate. What you just told us, that resonates. That resonates. And it not only resonates with normal lame people, it should resonate with healthcare practitioners. Because you're the beacon. You're the beacon of hope. Because you did it and you're doing it. I love you, Merrill.
We love you. We're grateful for you.
Thank you very much for joining us on Health with Sveta. Today's conversation reminds us that health, healing, and neuroplasticity don't live only in research papers or clinical settings. They live in the kitchens, in bedrooms, routines, setbacks, quiet moments of perseverance. They live in the love of the family, in their struggles, and in their battles, in their wins. Anna's honesty and Loren's honesty sheds light on the real work and the real world behind growth and resilience. Progress isn't always dramatic. It is deeply meaningful when it's rooted in consistency, care, and compassion. If this episode resonated with you, guys, please subscribe, leave a review, share it with someone who you think may need an encouragement on their own health journey. For more resources, please visit healthwithsveta.com. Until next time, take care, stay curious, be well. With love and hugs to you.
Thank you again to Dr. Sveta Silverman for continuing this conversation and for helping families like us feel seen and understood. If this episode spoke to you, please feel free to share it with someone who might need encouragement today. Remember, progress looks different for everyone, and every step forward matters. Thank you for listening, and as always, so let's be friends! If you're listening, thank you for being a part of this. We are excited to share more stories and more truth and more love in every episode. Until next time, love one another, and like I say, so let's be friends.